Once again, I'm Father Matt Durlock from the Diocese of Tulsa, President-elect of the Alumni Association. This morning it is my distinct honor to introduce Father Denis Robinson, OSB. As you know, Father Denis is a graduate of Saint Meinrad College and of the School of Theology. He was ordained to the priesthood for the Diocese of Memphis in 1993, where he served for 3 years before joining the Saint Meinrad monastic community. Since 2008, Father Denis has served as the President-Rector of Saint Meinrad Seminary and School of Theology, and he's here this morning to give us some updates on the seminary and school, and to answer any questions you may have. So please join me in welcoming Father Denis Robinson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am very happy to be with you this morning to just offer some reflections on where we are in our preparations for another formation term, and to certainly field any questions that anyone might have. Let me begin just by doing a kind of broad overview, and that is kind of all of the things that we do here at Saint Meinrad. Seminary enrollment, check. Dioceses, check. Religious communities, check. Graduate enrollment, check. Programs enrollment, check. Guest services, check. Okay, thank you all for your attention. No, let me go into a little bit more detail. How about that? So let's begin just by looking at the seminary. We are doing very well. We have about 120 seminarians that are planning to come beginning in just 10 days. The first ones will begin arriving in about 10 days. There are over 25 dioceses and religious communities that we serve. That's a very critical, important number just for the fact that we have so many dioceses. If things happen and we begin to see shifts, we don't have to worry about too many people disappearing. Certainly compared with other seminaries, this is very good numbers. What we are experiencing nationally is a drop in seminary formation in many places. For example, I'll give you just a couple of examples. One of our feeder schools, Benedictine feeder schools, college seminary, had an enrollment last year of about 25. That was down from a peak enrollment of about 130. So that we're seeing a lot of that in college seminaries. And I think part of that, and this is pure speculation on my part, is that fewer dioceses are really investing in college seminarians simply because there's such a high attrition rate in college seminaries, and that's to be expected. But nevertheless, how are you going to spend your money? That becomes one of the questions. I was very interested when I went to Rome in January to learn that down from about 300 students not too long ago, the North American College in Rome had an enrollment of 85. And that's tragic, isn't it? Just the saddest thing I've ever heard. Anyway, we have a lot going on, and just kind of looking in the seminary world now, there's just a lot taking place. And I'll talk about one of the most important things that is taking place in just a moment. Likewise, our cultural configuration remains pretty steady. We are about 30 to 40% international, and not to say they come from other places, they do, in a distal way, but they have a second language, mostly Spanish, but we have quite a number of Vietnamese and a few Burmese seminarians. So the cultural configuration is pretty broad, and that's good. We like to see that. It gives us a sense that even though we're here in southern Indiana, we are part of a very much a larger world church. And likewise, the intellectual status is high. We have very good grade point averages in all of our classes, and so that is a very important thing. Let me look at the issue, and I probably mentioned this last year, that is part of our kind of ongoing concern right now, not concern, but interest, and that is the implementation of the new program of priestly formation, the 6th edition. This was promulgated last summer by the U.S. bishops, and I was very happy, as I mentioned, I think at the meeting last year, that we were able to implement that propedeutic program, that pre-seminary program, which we call El Camino, the way. Already, we implemented it last year. It was very successful. It gave us, from 2 points of view, it was very successful because it was very successful, but it also gave us some insight into what might need to be tweaked a bit and it need to change a bit. So that was very good. We have 10 enrolled this year, and the program is now mandatory. It is mandatory for all seminarians, whether they're entering a college seminary program or whether they're entering a theology program. So the El Camino program, very successful. It concluded last year and will conclude always with the pilgrimage of the Camino de Santiago in Spain. And so that's kind of the capstone experience. Again, very successful. Not that I'm blowing my own trumpet, but yes, it was very successful and we're happy about it. The other major component of that new PPF is the program that takes place in the 4th year of theology in the 2nd semester. And in that new understanding of formation for priesthood, that semester will be spent in the diocese. So we have developed a new program called Emmaus that will take place in the diocese that we will help to facilitate, but it's not our total responsibility. It's completely in the diocese, so now graduation for priesthood candidates will take place in December of their 4th year. Then they will go on back to their diocese and be working in parishes in their diocese. Likewise, as I think I may have mentioned last year, ordination to the diaconate will not take place until the very end of that experience in the seminary. So in general, we will not have deacons in the seminary. And that's a problem, that's a loss. But again, we're looking at how we're going to configure this in a new reality. Likewise, the curriculum has had to be completely rearranged. I have to teach a course this fall that has like 45 people in it, just because we have to combine a couple of classes. But we have also been working on ways to look at the curriculum in a slightly different way. So this fall we will also be initiating a new Master of Arts degree for seminarians so that they can earn 2 degrees in the course of their seminary studies, or 3 if they go through the configuration. If they go through the configuration, they can learn 2. If they go through the discipleship, the discipleship stage, that is what we call pre-theology, they can also earn a degree. So if you go through the whole program here at Saint Meinrad, it's basically 6.5 years, and it gives you 3 degrees. That seems all right. And so people are we're kind of excited about that. But it has also given us a chance to review all of our formation programs, and I think that we tightened things quite a bit. But I will tell you, St. Meinrad is way ahead of the game where the implementation of the PPF 6 is concerned. We are way ahead of the game, and that's a very good thing for us. There are challenges. One is obviously alfalfa's hair is a challenge. You'd have to have a certain generational group to appreciate my slides. Seminarians don't get it at all. That's fine. Some challenges we have is continuing to kind of work with diocesan relationships. We have challenges in that area frequently, changes in administration, in bishops, in vocation directors can sometimes cause us to have certain, challenges. And so the diocesan relationships become a very important part. And sometimes we might need to think about how we're going to strengthen those a little bit. Certainly staffing in the seminary remains a challenge. As we become a smaller Benedictine community, finding monks who will or can work in the school becomes a little bit of a challenge, but we continue to try and move around that. Although I would say that most of the monks who work in the school are probably highly overworked. Some of them are. Okay, probably Garrick and I are. Just kidding. Every one of them is. The other thing that I think we're experiencing is a generational shift, and that's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, is how the new generation of seminarians approaches the question of formation, how they see the question of formation. And I'll give a little bit more of an example of what I mean by that as we move through the presentation this morning. School of Theology, here they are. The graduate programs are going very well. We have a new director of the graduate programs. Formerly, Sister Gina was involved as being both the director of the School of Theology programs and the director of the graduate programs, or the dean for the graduate programs. So that's now being split into two jobs, so she can give more emphasis to her work with the other programs, and then we'll have a new director for the graduate degree programs. They are certainly meeting their enrollment goals. They have a full house for the beginning in the fall program, so that's all very good. There's more to do, there's more to think about in these programs, and I'm hoping, I'm sure, that our new director of the graduate programs will be able to offer some insight into how we can move forward. So, for example, looking at delivery programs or delivery systems for the programs, looking at ways in which the weekend course, which is very burdensome. It is. I mean, teaching for 20 hours a weekend is a nightmare. But it's done very well. But we probably need to be thinking about some new things, including the possibility of resident enrollment. The permanent deacon program continues to thrive. Thank you, Ron. The permanent deacon program is 25 years old this year and has done very, very well. We continue to have a very high number of dioceses that are using the program. How many this year, Ron, coming up? How many?
We're going to have 10 dioceses.
10 dioceses for this year. They also have, I would say, excellent leadership in that program and a real eye for future orientation. There's a number of things that I think the deacon program can do to expand the use of that program in different dioceses around the country, but we're doing extremely well. Continuing formation, I would mention the Institute for Priests and Presbyterates has had excellent enrollments this past year and is looking forward to a good fall as well. Their summer sabbatical program, I think, is the highest enrollment they've ever had. They are also offering a lot of new delivery models. That really seems to be the key for a lot of what we're doing, is how can we get our word out to people? We used to say that people really wanted to come to Saint Meinrad for the Saint Meinrad experience. But one of the things we are looking at very carefully is how the Saint Meinrad experience can be taken to other places or done through kind of technological means and bringing that to people, a lot more people than can possibly come to Saint Meinrad. We had a good World Church program this summer, a tour of Paris before it got too hot and before they started rioting. I don't know if the rioting had to do with our presence there, but they said, oh, the Americans, we must have riots now. Anyway, but it was an excellent summer, a very good program. We enjoyed that time together. And then the Catechetical Leadership Program also continues to do very well. So there's just a great deal going on. The Spiritual Direction Program, lots of things that are happening, and so it's good. Is there more that can happen? Certainly, and I think that's the continual push that we continue to organically grow and develop these programs. As you know, one of our major emphases now is youth and young adults. They have new facilities. If you haven't had a chance to walk through, I walked through this morning down on the first floor of Anselm Hall. They have new offices and new facilities down there. The One Bread, One Cup program had a great summer. We have somewhat reconfigured those summer programs with now just 2 conferences, but full. And that was like 3 conferences, but not full. Now we have 2 conferences that are full, so the enrollment is right on the mark. Our youth leadership program, funded by the Lilly Foundation, also doing very well. And if you had a chance to listen to the presentation yesterday, hopefully you know that. And then we have a new grant, and I don't know if Cassie mentioned it, but it's a study for children, that is to say young children, grade school children's religious patterns in education. So we're kind of moving that youth and young adult model to a much broader understanding. Challenges for the School of Theology. I think housing availability becomes one of the main issues. We struggle continually with housing. Likewise, staffing, I think, will be as a problem. The number of programs, that is to say, programs can be expanded. We can have a larger number. And also the financial sustainability, looking at ways in which we can continue to sustain programming financially. It's ironic, but in many ways, looking at more online offerings and looking at more alternative delivery systems becomes a positive financial idea, because some people just, they can't come to Saint Meinrad, and some people can't come to Saint Meinrad and pay the price for housing, and some people, so it begins to whittle down the number of people that can participate. But online programs have no housing cost or food cost, and it helps to raise the essential number of people enrolled in those courses. Guest services, likewise, continues to do well. Have excellent occupancy rate, great leadership there with Dawn Cleaving. Some difficulties we've had with housekeeping, but this is kind of part and parcel of the contemporary labor market. But nothing serious, nothing substantial. Likewise, in food services, we have a very good leadership. But there are financial challenges in all of these areas. I think the cost of meals has now gone up to like $13, $14, $15 per meal. It's like, Lord have mercy, I can easily go to the Agaves and get something. So, what are some of the things we need to focus on as we begin this new formation year, as we begin this new period? So, this is my 16th year as President Rector, and it has been a very lovely 15 years, but I think that it's essential that I don't count on what's happened in the past to move us forward. We must continue to strive for that forward vision. And I say this in almost every context over the course of the semester, the year, that our success depends upon about a 15 to 20 year vision into the future. Where will we be 15 years from now? Where will we be 20 years from now? So I think there are some things that we need to focus on right now and things that we need to look at in order to be able to sustain that vision for the long term. Again, diocesan relations is one of them. Continue to build diocesan relations, continue to go out for dinners, for example, in dioceses, whether they're local or a bit more far-flung. Staffing, continue to look at ways in which we can beef up our staffing. Again, that generational shift, the kind of change that has gone on. Tomorrow, for example, I'm giving a talk to the Diocese of Owensboro leadership team on the issues relating to this generational shift, and some of the questions that come up there. Continuing to raise the importance of finances and endowments, continuing to work with the Development Office and the increase of those endowments. Continuing to raise a vision awareness, making sure that our particular vision of formation and our particular vision of the church remains in the forefront. and basically what I call holding our ground in the middle. You know, I said one of the challenges that we have in the church today is that many within the church have kind of moved to the margins. We have a marginalized church. Whether it's marginalized on one side of the ideological coin or the other, we're marginalized. The Catholic Church authentically is a middle ground church. We should be in the middle. We should all be together in the middle. And holding fast to the middle as a way of proceeding information in all of these areas kind of becomes essential for our ability to push forward into that church of the future. So thank you, and thank you for all of your continuing support for Saint Meinrad. And I'm certainly happy to field any questions that you might have at this time. Yes, just go.
About what percentage of income, for lack of a better word, is based on grants?
You mean, oh, well, it depends on the program. So, for example, in those youth programs, a lot of them are fueled by grants. But they're also what I would kind of call researching. They're looking to see whether there's something feasible for the future. And part of the essence of a grant, particularly a Lilly grant, is the feasibility of the program, whatever it may be, continuing for the future. And so what we found is several things can happen. One is it's not feasible or needed. Two, Lilly continues to fund it for a while. Or three, we find ways to fund it that will hopefully eventually be even, or breaking even. You know, I think it's very important, we have to remember, an institution like Saint Meinrad is not a profit-making institution. We're not a for-profit. If we were, we'd have to pay taxes. So it doesn't matter. We don't want to do that. But we also have to make sure that we're using our funds the greatest level of effectiveness. So, yeah. Yes?
Has there been any thought to how you might be looking at these new ministries, and particularly with the Ministry of Life and Catechist and training for that? And have the bishops come out with anything yet, or are they still kind of hem-hawing on that?
Next question. No, I think there's a lot of still things that are unclear in that reality. And so I think as the bishops emerge with a more clear vision, then we'll be ready to respond to that vision. Sometimes I think institutions like St. Meinrad have to help in that matter. And I think, for example, in the implementation of the PPF, we're helping. Because one of the things we found, particularly with that final program in fourth year, is very few dioceses have an idea of what they're going to do. So we have to kind of provide the vision of what they're going to do. But I think as we begin to see that shift in the ministries, the rise of ministries, the new understanding of ministries, then we'll be able to respond to that. Or it might be that as we move forward in the next couple of years, we're going to have to provide a little bit more of that vision ourselves. And help. We want to be helpful. I always want to be helpful. My life is service. Other questions or anything else I can answer? Yeah.
Could you say a few words on what is shifting in the generational shift? Is it fear of making a commitment for one thing?
It's a difficult question. And let me try and I'll give you a little bit of an understanding of what I'm going to talk about tomorrow in this program. One of the problems that we are facing in the church today, I think, is as leadership models change and ecclesiological models begin to change, there is a certain emphasis, and it's not true everywhere, it's not true with everyone, but it is a majority truth, I think, in a younger generation, that they begin to look for a leadership model. And our point is, institutionally, we have a leadership model. And especially as, for example, seminarians are those preparing for lay ministry in the church, there's only one place to look for that leadership. But what we're finding is that there can be the case in some places that seminarians are latching on to alternative leadership models. And I call it guruism. You know, you have the charismatic priest or the charismatic, mostly blog person, and they're giving a lot of attention to that, and they're taking their cues from that. And sometimes that can create a scenario in the diocese where some of the priests might be not paying as much attention to the legitimate authority, but this kind of charismatic authority is pushing them forward. And that's something that we have to be very careful about, that we have to deal with. And another issue that can arise is what I call submarining. That is to say, you're a seminarian and you are following this particular model of this particular charismatic priest, but you just do whatever they tell you to do in the seminary and don't say anything, and then you get out and do what you want. And that can be an issue, believe me. It can be an issue. And I think that's something that we have to deal with. I think it's something we have to work with our dioceses in dealing with. And it's just very interesting when you look at this guruism. I think a question to ask is, are there priests in the diocese, for example, that are producing lots of vocations? And on the one level, we say, great, that's wonderful, that should happen. But on the other level, we have to say, but what kinds of vocations are they developing and pushing? And is it vocations to the diocese and to the parishes, or is it vocations to a particular ideology that they hope to enact once they're ordained? And those are questions that I think we have to ask. Other concerns? Yes, Mike.
Can you say something about what you're witnessing with people exploring the vocation and going about focus before coming to seminary or instead of seminary? Have you had any dialogue with that?
You mean like focus as the missionary move? Yeah. Yeah. And we do have a lot of people that come to us through that route. And we do have a lot of people that come to us through Hallow. Is that it? Is that it? Hallow? What? Yeah. And so we have people that are very adapted to those models of the church. And great. You know. But I think, for example, with Focus, we have had great experience with former Focus missionaries. And we've also had some challenges.
Because they're pretty well.
And they're pretty, yes, that's just it. We are Focus missionaries. And now we're going to be priests who, we're going to be Focus missionaries who happen to be priests. You know, and those are some of the challenges. And it's true with lay ministers as well. And so what we really have to do is not discount the Focus formation, but we have to augment the Focus formation and see them as moving beyond that formation.
So a follow-up with that, for those of us that have young people going to Focus, that have talked to their pastors about the possibility of going to seminary, and then they make the decision for Focus, how do you help equip us to continue to journey with it?
I think keeping the dialogue open is the key, and making sure that you're saying, well, what's your experience in Focus like? How are things going? You know, have been the pros? What have been some of the challenges? And then keep bringing the question of seminary formation to the forefront, and see what happens. Yeah. Yes.
Would you open your crystal ball and tell us what you see 5 and 10 years into the future? Or is that Pandora's box?
It is both. I do think that the challenge we're going to have, and I'm going to try to put it in very broad terms because it's hard to kind of just keep pointing to individual cases. The challenge we're going to have is to reinstitute the institution. because the institution is flailing right now. I hate to say it that way, but it is. I mean, just the credibility of dioceses, the problems that various groups are having within the diocese, what I would call the small group mentality of, you know, we love our parish, or we love the men's group in the parish, but we're not too keen on the bishop. Or we're not too keen on the parish. You know, parochialism has become a very key issue, I think, in the contemporary church. You know, it used to be, back in the old days, when I was a person, back in the old days, you know, people went to their local parish church. You know, now people are driving across the diocese to attend church in a place that suits their ideological needs, or what they perceive as their ideological needs. And I think rebuilding the local church, rebuilding the church as a parochial reality, so that people don't feel like they have to shop around for a parish that suits their needs, whatever it may be, and it could be in either direction, is going to be key. So what we are trying to do here, and I think for the most part, we're fairly successful, is creating ministers, whether they're priests or whether they're lay ministers or whether they're deacons, who are going to not be ideological, kind of confrontational people in their diocese, but are going to build up the local community and deal with people. I said, you know, and this is, I should just give the presentation I'm giving tomorrow. You know, we need, as leaders, whatever way we're leading, and I think that's another thing for us to real concentrate on, participation among leaders in the coming years. But as leaders, we need to be seeking the margins. And I'll never forget, and I just go back to it again and again in my mind, you know, a seminarian who said to me several years ago now, it's been so long ago, it might have been in the 19th century, I don't know. They said to me years ago, we need to just let the lukewarm Catholics go. And we need to concentrate on the super Catholics. I said, okay, how do you define that? And two, your job as a priest is to seek the margins and bring those people in. Not let them go, not let them drift away, no matter why they're at the margins. And any of us who have been involved in any way, at any level, in parish ministry know, you know, the choir contributes about 15% of the parish community. The rest of the people are, You know, our job as ministers is to work on and that's going to be, I think, the focus for the future. But we have to get over this whole thing about these charismatic people that are just have a particular vision and want to implement it. Yeah. Others? Yes?
With the completion of the reconstruction of Anselm Hall, that kind of completes a cycle of all the...
You're not kidding. Yes, it does.
That makes the monastery itself, I guess, one of the oldest buildings.
No, monastery was renovated about 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
It's been completely redone.
What is the next construction project?
The next construction project is called a new rector. I love construction. I do. I love it. No, it's very interesting. There is only one area of the monastery, of the whole complex, that hasn't been touched in the past 10 years. The kitchen. And we were still working in a kitchen that produces 3,000 meals a day. And it's ancient. And the dishwasher breaks down about every 2 weeks, you know. But other than that, and so we really are at an advantage with other seminaries in terms of we have the ability to, new facilities, air conditioning, private bathrooms, the whole thing. And our facilities can just switch back and forth between usage as seminary, graduate degree, whatever it may be. And so that's the benefit. But I think I have another 5-year term as rector. And I hope not to have to do any campaigns. Is that fair, Dwayne, that we will not have to do?
I second that.
Dwayne and I are exactly the same age, so we both know how debilitating that is for the back and feet. Good. Other questions or anything else I can answer? Anything else? Thank you all for being here. It's the highlight of my summer, which tells you what a dismal summer.
Thank you, Father Dennis. I want to take the opportunity to introduce newest board members for the Alumni Board. I think many of you are here, if not all of you. Father Dale Cieslik from the Archdiocese of Louisville. Where's Dale? Maybe. All right. Father Brian Emick from the Diocese of Evansville. Father Brian. Deacon Peter Rendon from the Archdiocese of Louisville. All right. Deacon Mike Braun from the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. There's Mike. Andy Byrne from New Albany. And Father Ross Caniglia from the Diocese of Sioux City, Iowa. Ross is here. We have one new member unable to be with us this reunion. That's Lisa Covington. So we hope to see her in October for our next meeting. If you are on the board, will you stand so that everyone can see who represents them to the administration, to this community? So thank you to all of our board members. And if there are any questions of the board, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, we probably ought to vacate this room so the next talk can come. Thank you for your time this morning. Have a wonderful rest of the reunion today.